Hello and welcome to the Randall Road at I-90 virtual public meeting hosted by the King County Division of Transportation. King County appreciates your interest and involvement in the project.
This public information meeting has three essential purposes: provide the public with the latest project information, to describe the project so that you can express your views and determine how you may be affected, and finally, to gather input on the preferred alternative for Randall Road at I-90. Your input will be considered in the preparation of the final development report and official meeting documentation. Meeting materials, the roll plots, and final technical reports for this project are available for review online at www.randallover90.com beginning Wednesday, August 7th at 8 a.m. The information on the project website is the same information shown in this presentation and at the in-person meeting. The project's purpose and need provides a guide as to what is important and has kept us focused. If you look at the information we have compiled on this project over the years, you will constantly see references to purpose and need because that is what matters most. The preferred alternative addresses the needs identified on this slide, providing assurance that the alternative KDOT selected is the best fit for what all of us, including you, determined what was most important. As a reminder, the project's purpose is to develop one or more infrastructure concepts, which enhances mobility, improves safety, supports current and future travel demand, and addresses economic and quality of life impacts throughout the corridor. The needs for this project are to relieve congestion, improve travel times, and provide for expected traffic growth, provide capacity improvements, which mitigate poor levels of service, improve safety performance by reducing impediments to smooth traffic flow, and address deficiencies in existing roadway, bridge, and multimodal infrastructure. You can view the entire statement on the homepage of the project website. Community input is an important part of this project. Based on the input gathered during the May 2023 public information meetings, the top concerns shared by respondents included potential noise impacts, alternative preference, improving traffic operations, and signal timing and phasing. Additionally, survey responses showed that 71% of respondents strongly oppose the no-build alternative, meaning that most agree that improvements are needed. When asked for their alternative preferences, 60% of respondents either preferred or strongly preferred alternative 1, while 34% of respondents strongly preferred alternative 5, though 32% also strongly opposed it.
The purpose and need described earlier was used as a guide to determine these criteria. These included travel time and intersection delay to highlight an alternative's ability to relieve congestion. Safety, if you recall during our previous presentations, the highest crash type experienced throughout the corridor was rear ends. So likely due to congestion and stop and go traffic, safety was evaluated based on the queues experienced at the intersections that saw the greatest number of crashes. We also looked at constructability, multimodal facilities, and the ability to accommodate alternative forms of transportation, such as bicycles and pedestrians, construction costs, estimated right-of-way needed, and public and stakeholder input received from the surveys you filled out during the previous meetings. If you recall at our last public meeting, we walked through the 5 remaining build alternatives in addition to the no build to get your feedback as to part of the evaluation process. So using the criteria I just described, we were able to identify the alternative that best fits the Randall corridor. The first alternative listed here that was eliminated was alternative number 5, which included the echelon interchange. The echelon included grades separating all of the intersections through the interchange, which presented a number of safety concerns due to the steep grades needed to provide vertical clearances. Alternative 5 was also the costliest alternative and received low scores from the public, and as such was eliminated from consideration. Alternatives 2 and 4 were also eliminated, both of which included the jug handle design south of the interchange. The jug handle design added an additional traffic signal along Randall Road, but it made the new signal and the ALF lane signal more efficient by removing phases. It also added capacity to the ALF lane intersection, but it required additional right-of-way and costs, And because there were less impactful options that still provided a significant improvement to the traffic operations at Elf Lane, alternatives 2 and 4 were eliminated from consideration, which left alternatives 1 and 3. These both included a 6-lane section to the north and south. Alternative 1 added a loop ramp to become a partial cloverleaf interchange, while alternative 3 included a displaced left interchange. Both had similar scores for the majority of their criteria, providing a significant benefit to traffic and safety along Randall Road. But ultimately, alternative 1 demonstrated faster travel times, overall safety, and received the highest scores from the public at our last meeting, and as such was identified as the preferred alternative. You can view the full list of these final alternatives on the project website. And this got us to our preferred alternative, which you can see here, the partial cloverleaf, due to its ability to best support the project's purpose and need. Adding the loop ramp makes the southbound Randall Road to eastbound I-90 movement a free-flow movement, which provides congestion relief and enhances safety. It also improves the travel times for northbound and southbound Randall Road by removing the conflict of left-turning traffic at the eastbound I-90 intersection. Widening to a 6-lane section to the north and south also increases the capacity of Randall Road. We're going to walk through the analysis and design in more detail on the coming slides. I'm going to send it to Bailey first to talk about the traffic conditions.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. And good evening, everyone. As Katie just mentioned, intersection delay and the resulting travel times were key metrics that we evaluated amongst the alternatives considered. And so this slide presents a summary of the comparison between future projected travel times under the preferred alternative configuration and the no-build alternative, with both scenarios based on year 2035 traffic projections. The diagram is a nice visual that helps to illustrate the heavily traveled movements during the morning rush hour, or AM peak, which focuses on the eastbound I-90 ramp terminal as a critical juncture during this timeframe. As you can see in the tables to the right, there is a significant improvement to anticipated travel times, with more than a 3 times reduction for all 3 major travel movements. These results indicate the preferred alternative enhances mobility throughout the corridor compared to the no-build alternative in the morning peak hour of traffic. In transitioning over to the afternoon rush hour, or PM peak, critical traffic operations are invertedly centered at the westbound I-90 ramp intersection with Randall Road, as shown on this slide. While not as drastic, an improvement can still be seen with shorter travel times throughout the Randall Road corridor. Average northbound travel times proceeding through the roadway facilitates the extents and are reduced by approximately 6 minutes as displayed in the lower right-hand side of the slide. And noticeable improvements are still prevalent at the ramp terminal for folks exiting westbound I-90. With congestion defining Randall Road, these past 2 slides highlight how the preferred alternative was identified based on its ability to best move vehicles throughout the corridor. I'll now pass the spotlight over to Richard, who is going to dive into more detail on the proposed geometry associated with the preferred alternative.
Following slide, or this slide shows the proposed typical section north and south of the I-90 interchange. The existing 4-lane section is going to be widened to a 6-lane curb section along the existing alignment to the north, or to the south, and then north of the interchange, Randall Road will be widened to a 6-lane curb section to the west to minimize impacts to residential properties. A 10-foot multi-use path is proposed along the entire project limits, providing accommodations for bicycles and pedestrians. The location of the path varies throughout the corridor, which will be shown in additional detail on the upcoming slides. So in the upcoming slides, we'll talk through the preferred alternative in more detail throughout the corridor. But first, we're going to describe the legend. So the gray color shows proposed pavement, and the purple shows the multi-use path or other multimodal accommodations along the corridor. The pink lines represent retaining walls that will be proposed, and right-of-way is shown in red and blue. The red dashed line indicates existing right-of-way, and the blue dashed line indicates proposed right-of-way. The diagonal hatched line indicates locations where temporary construction easements are anticipated to be needed for construction, but will then be returned to the owner when construction is complete. The design will be finalized during the following phase of the project, which is also when the land acquisition process will occur. So this slide starts at the southern limits of the project improvements. The 6-lane section ties into the existing 6-lane section at the Fox Lane intersection. The multi-use path you can see is on the east side of Randall Road and extends south and ties into the multimodal accommodations proposed by the Big Timber project being conducted separately by Kane County. Traffic signals will remain at Fox Lane and Alf Lane, and the multi-use path will cross to the east side of Randall Road on the north side of the Alf Lane intersection. So now moving north, the slide has been rotated with north now pointing up to best show the interchange improvements. So give everyone a second to reorient yourself. Both ramps to eastbound I-90 are now proposed to be free flow. The loop ramp in the southwest quadrant accommodates southbound Randall Road, and the northbound Randall Road entrance ramp has been realigned as can be seen on this slide. The entrance to I-90 from the eastbound ramp will be widened to a 2-lane entrance ramp. I-90 currently goes from 3 lanes to 4 lanes east of the Randall Road interchange. This will remain the case with the 2-lane ramp extending to the east and then dropping when there has been sufficient distance for traffic to merge onto I-90. The multi-use path crosses back to the east side of Randall Road through the interchange, which allows users of the path to safely cross its designated crosswalks and avoid having to cross ramp traffic that may not be expecting to have to stop for pedestrians. The current westbound I-90 exit ramp to Randall Road is already 2 lanes with 2 turn lanes in either direction. The project team has extended the turn lanes along the ramp as far as possible to provide additional capacity at the intersection. You can see north of this intersection that southbound Randall Road traffic is channelized before the intersection to provide the greatest traffic benefit to both I-90 and Randall Road traffic. Overhead signing and pavement markings will be used to ensure that users know which lane to be in approaching the interchange. A proposed retaining wall is shown near the Pace bus facility in order to accommodate the Randall Road widening and avoid impacts to the bus turnaround. So, Talia, can you pause real quick? So upcoming next is a simulation video which provides a visualization of how the operational flow of traffic at the proposed interchange of Randall Road with I-90 is going to look. So this video captures morning rush hour traffic. So go ahead, Talia. So first, what you're going to see is an overhead view of the project with north being to the right of the screen. And this view shows how the operations at the interchange will work along with the adjacent intersections of Point Boulevard and Auto Mall Drive to the north, and then Fox and Alf Lane to the south. This viewport demonstrates the anticipated improvement in traffic performance across the corridor with the implementation of the loop ramp for southbound Randall traffic traveling to eastbound I-90. So as the video zooms in, it's going to provide an isometric view of the interchange, so you can get a closer look at how drivers will interact with the preferred alternative. So if you look to the top left of your screen, Alf Lane, that's Alf Lane there, and then to the bottom right, that is Point Boulevard. This view provides insight into how the ramp intersections are going to facilitate northbound and southbound Randall Road traffic and how vehicle patterns will change as for how they will enter onto I-90. So here you can kind of see that southbound CD road along Randall Road and how traffic will enter onto eastbound I-90 via the loop ramp, as well as northbound Randall Road coming from Alf Lane will have that free flow access to eastbound I-90 as well. And then beyond there, they will merge down to one ramp lane that will continue on to I-90. I'll just So I'll just give it a few seconds to run. And if you could just pause that again, Talia. So this upcoming video is a driver perspective of how a vehicle would turn from Point Boulevard and make their way onto eastbound I-90. It's a sped up video that is pulled directly from the modeling software and is a little bit choppy. So if you have any motion sensitivities, just please be aware of that. Go ahead, Talia. So from Point Boulevard, you'll be in the middle lane, turning left onto southbound Randall Road. So here you turn left and you have you would enter the CD road on the right, which leads to I-90. And as you continue along, there will be a merge down to one lane, and then you'll enter the loop ramp, which continues onto eastbound I-90. And it's probably a little bit choppy. So this video will be provided at the in-house meeting tomorrow, as well as the um, documents provided on the website. Yeah, it looks like it's frozen for me, so sorry about that. But the purpose of this video is just to provide, just in following the vehicle, we're better able to gauge traffic flow and congestion and travel speeds throughout the corridor, as well as identify points where traffic slows down in approaching the loop ramp. This video is just a conceptualization of traffic operations, and we're aware that proper signage and pavement markings are critical items that need to be incorporated to provide clear guidance to drivers on decisions that they need to make. All right, so getting back to non-video slides, we're focusing back on Randall Road north of the I-90 interchange now. You can see the Point Boulevard intersection on the left of your screen. In order to provide a 6-lane section that does not require displacements, the widening will be occurring on the west side of Randall Road. A new traffic signal is proposed at the intersection of Randall Road and Technology Drive, which is currently stop controlled. And the path is also included back on the west side of Randall Road, and they will cross over at Point Boulevard. The team is working with the City of Elgin regarding the placement of the path in coordination with accommodations already provided by recent developments through the area. Now this is the final north section of the project, and you can see how the improvements tie in north at Carrington Road and match into the Illinois 72 project improvements being constructed by the county as part of a separate project. Ryan is going to be discussing the noise analysis next.
Thank you, Richard. So based on the traffic noise analysis report, the noise barriers as shown on the map are being evaluated for reasonable and feasible criteria set by the Federal Highway Administration. If these barriers are found to meet that criteria, then KDOT would coordinate with the property owners and residences that are adjacent to the proposed barriers to gather their feedback. Final determination of construction of these noise barriers will be based on that feedback as well as IDOT guidelines. And now I will turn it back over to Katie.
Thank you, Ryan. So this slide shows the project development process. So we are currently in the preliminary engineering and environmental study phase. That's phase 1, where the focus has been on data gathering, preliminary geometric design, and environmental studies. So once the project receives environmental clearance and approval through IDOT and FHWA, KDOT will move into the final design phase, which can take an average of 2 to 4 years. And during this phase of the project, land acquisition will occur, as well as the development of final construction plans. Following that, and pending identification of funding, again, right-of-way acquisition and environmental permitting, the project would move into phase construction, which takes another 2 to 5 years or longer to complete, depending on how the project gets broken up. And it is important to note here that this portion of the project, the phase construction, would not begin until full funding was secured. And so now I'm going to send it to Talia Clark, who's going to lead us in our question and answer session.
Thanks, Katie. So a lot of information has been presented, so we do appreciate your attention during the presentation. So as Katie just mentioned, we're going to move into a Q&A session. So please feel free to submit your questions using the chat box, and we'll address them as in the order they are received. If you are calling in, you can also dial that *9 to raise your hand, and we can take questions that way as well. So just saw a question in the chat box from Andrew Smith. So just wanted to thank you for picking the best option. I'm working on the development at the corner of Off and Randall. This option is clearly the best. Appreciate your comments, Andrew. Again, if you are calling in, do feel free to dial that *9 and school it. Kelly saw your comment as well. So Sanfilippo also likes that option. Thank you so much. Appreciate that comment. So Paul asks, why does the path cross over Randall Road so many times? So good question, Paul. I am going to toss it to Richard to help answer that question. Richard?
Yeah. Hi. So that's a great question. So the Randall Road multi-use path does have three locations where it crosses over Randall Road. The path starts on the east side from the south end of the project, continuing off the multimodal improvements provided in the Big Timber Road project. We're crossing over to the west side basically to avoid having a free flow crossing at the eastbound I-90 entrance ramp from northbound I-90 or northbound Randall Road. And then it crosses back to avoid another free flow crossing at the westbound I-90 ramp intersection. And then to the north of the project, where the multi-use path for the 72 project is on the west side of the road. So we're crossing back over onto the west side to tie into that multi-use path. So yeah.
Thanks, Talia. Yep, and I was just going to pull up, we just wanted to pull up the interchange on the screen to kind of show those crossings. If you see on the east side of Randall Road, there's that northbound to eastbound movement now no longer has to stop at the light. It's a free flow movement. So we're trying to avoid having the path cross that ramp where, again, traffic is not expecting to stop at that ramp, just for a visual for Richard's explanation there. We are looking at alternative options to potentially grade separate the path. Right now, this is how we have it shown laid out here, but again, there are still a few options we're looking at to avoid. We know that crossing over isn't ideal, but again, trying to make sure that it's safe for everyone who's using that path.
Thanks, Katie and Richard. Any more questions in the chat? So hearing none, we're going to keep going here. And I'm going to toss it back to Katie.
Thank you. Okay, so you can see on this slide here, this phase one, the project timeline for this phase study that we're in right now. We are nearing the end here and currently in the public information meeting and comment period phase. So the public comment period will conclude on Sunday, September 8th. Responses will be provided to comments received, and those will be included in the official meeting documentation as well. Following that will be the final project development report will be developed, and that'll include a summary of all the work that has been done during phase one, as well as all technical reports to be reviewed and approved by IDOT.
Hey, Katie, I'm gonna pause right here. I just saw
yes.
another question come into the chat that
Mhm.
I want to address. So, it was asked, can you explain the approach being taken on the retaining wall analysis, specifically the area between Saddle Club Parkway and Joy Lane?
Yes, and I think this is more specific to those noise barriers that Ryan mentioned that are being analyzed right now. I don't know if you can go into a little more detail on that, Ryan, for the group.
Yeah. Talia, if you want to go to the slide with the noise barriers, I think that's the area we're talking about. So yeah, the process here is once an area is impacted, so we model the kind of the build, the project layout, and if we have certain areas that are exceeding the thresholds, we go into kind of a further barrier analysis for each of those areas. So the large residential area to the east is an impacted area, as well as those apartments to the northwest of Northwest Parkway and Randall. So how the process kind of works is you first model these barriers, and there is kind of a long list of different check boxes that they all need to accomplish. And I think the best way to summarize them is that the barriers should be cost effective, meaning they should help a large amount of receptors. You know, if there was a large barrier only helping two homes or two very spread out receptors, that is not something that would be cost effective or feasible or reasonable based on these guidelines. So the barriers pictured here have kind of passed a lot of the check boxes to get to kind of the last stages of this analysis. So there's still a few things we need to kind of check through. For example, that those two barriers kind of looking at each other across from Randall Road, just north of Northwest Parkway. Since they are across from each other, there's an opportunity for the sound from the traffic to kind of reflect off both of them. So we kind of have to do an analysis to make sure that the barrier would still be effective, even if both of those were to be, recommended for the project. And then kind of as I talked about a little bit during the presentation, the final step would be approaching the what they call benefited receptors. So if this barrier is giving your home a 5 decibel reduction in sound levels from the barrier not being there, those are the people that would be asked whether or not they would want that barrier to be built. So then there's a tallying of all of that. And that kind of is what the last step of the whole process is. And feel free to ask more questions based on that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan, for that. So, got a question from Kathleen. Would all of the personal properties have to agree in order for the barrier to be built?
Yes, good question. It's actually a pretty complicated calculation, but I think at the end of the day, it weights renters and owners a certain way. So it's pretty complex, but I think by the end of the day, it has to be a majority. So it doesn't have to be a unanimous decision. And the it's primarily going to be the first row of receivers there to the east, because those are going to be the most benefited by that barrier. So it would probably be around like 20 to 30 receptors or homes that would be participating in that.
Any more questions for Ryan or the team in general? Seeing and hearing none, so we'll jump back into the presentation. Katie, pick it back up.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we can hang on for just a few minutes after we're done here too to see if any other questions come in here. So feel free to again add them as they come up here. But we've come to the point here where we're going to encourage you to tell us also what you think in our survey for this meeting. So there's multiple ways that you can provide your input. You can see them listed on your screen here. There's a QR code for the survey. You can also find the survey on the project website, which again is www.randallover90.com. You can also send your comments by email to the project team at randallover90@gmail.com, or send it by mail to the Kane County address that you can see on the screen here as well. So again, all comments must be received by Sunday, September 8th to be included in this formal meeting documentation. Feel free to provide comments outside of that time frame. Again, they just won't be included as part of this formal meeting documentation for the public meeting.
Well, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us for this live presentation. Your input will help shape the future of this community and the Randall at I-90 project. For more information regarding the project or to sign up for the project updates, please visit www.randallover90.com. Thank you and have a good night.
And again, as Katie mentioned, we'll hang on for a couple of minutes in case any other comments come in. So I just saw one from Kelly. So how has the upgrade on Randall Road widening impacted traffic over the past couple of months? So I'll give that one to Katie and Richard.
Yeah, no, and I apologize, Kelly. Is there a specific portion of Randall Road that you're mentioning? I know we did do traffic counts at the beginning of this study, which is in 2022, to compare them to the counts that we did during the Pell.
Katie, this is
Yes.
Mike.
Yep.
I'm assuming this is in reference to the Randall at Alt work.
Yeah, that work there.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that, I mean, like, I don't see as many accidents out
Yep,
here.
that makes more sense.
I don't see as many police here, but is that, do you guys have data on how that's improving accidents out here?
I can speak for KDOT. It usually takes a year or two for us to get enough data to do an analysis on whether the traffic impacts to an improvement are. And so we haven't had this, let's say, on the street, open it long enough to evaluate it. I can say we've received generally positive comments about it, or positive comments and not really bad comments. So we'll take that as a victory. It sounds like people are using it and liking it, for lack of a better way to put it. So I think it's helping right now, but it'll take another year or two for us to get enough data to tell you how much it's helping.
more questions from the group. You can also come off mute if you have a question as well.
Hello, this is Doug Wilson from Sherman Hospital. That multi-use path, is that a like bike path or something?
Yes, yeah. So we should have explained a little more. So yeah, it'll be 10 feet wide, so it'll accommodate both bicycles and pedestrians as well. I know there's talking faster, a 5-foot sidewalk currently in that location in front of the hospital there. So that'll be widened to a 10-foot path so it can accommodate, again, bicycles as well.
Will that go all the way to Big Timber?
Yeah, it'll tie into a separate project, multi-use path there to the south.
Thank you.
Yep.
Let's add another question here in the chat. So have you drawn a plan how the intersection would look? And so is there a specific intersection you're referencing? Looks like the question came from Mohammed.
Yeah, if there's a specific intersection, we can look at that one in more detail. Outside of that, again, I think we, show the general layout on these slides. Again, they'll also be on the product website as well as a roll plot to kind of look at, where everything falls on the aerial here. Again, we put some notes here where the aerial might not be fully up to date, but those plans will be available to review as well on your own on the product website. So yeah, maybe you want to go to the surveys page. We can just have that up here for anyone. Again, if you can fill out the survey online, that would be great. So we can make sure all these comments, again, we have these ones in the chat, but make sure that your input is included in the formal report here. Again, we'll put on the screen here. It'll be on the website as well as in the in-person meeting tomorrow. But again, feel free to type any more questions you have here in the chat.